you at some stage were in the political race in this cycle in District 59 in New York. When I hear you talking about, sometimes your own folks turn on you, is that part of what you're referencing? Because I watched it from over here and it was a bit all confusing to me. Maybe you could explain it to me. It was like Sam Seder's show, like we're running for government, Sam Seder's show, woohoo. The next day, Sam Seder's show was like, oh, we got to kind of pull back on a little bit of that. And then it was about, is it the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America group had got behind Kristen Gonzalez, and then a whole bunch of left commentators like, well, we always support the DSA candidate, and then there seemed to be conflict between everybody, and then you dropped out and you endorsed Kirsten, who I think won, didn't she? I looked at the numbers. So can you unpack that a bit for me so we can understand how that all worked out? And is that a part of your when you're talking about being turned on?
It's a sliver. I'm seeing it. The people calling, like, this is happening all over the place. This isn't just, it is happening everywhere. It's been going on for a couple of years now. I'd say since maybe 2000, aggressively since like 2000, early 2020, maybe. Maybe even, I think it started with hints earlier. My race, so listen, we had a complicated redistricting process. Redistricting happens every 10 years after the census, a couple of years after. State legislatures, for the most part, almost just a commissions in New York. We drew a set of lines and district lines that got challenged in a court, in a conservative court. And so here's an important part. Number one, everyone knew it was a redistricting year. Mm-hmm. So folks knew that if they were running early, which was a little bit of a risk, they were likely going to have to run in with new lines. My district, where I lived, was represented by the deputy majority leader of the Senate, and was not even on the table, right? But then they changed, this guy called the special master changed the lines, and suddenly in early June, they created the new lines, and it included mostly where I live. Now, I immediately got phone calls from people saying, this is a new district, brand new district, because of population growth, you should run. And I was like, let me think about it, 3 or 4 days, right? Now, meanwhile, there were 3 women running in a different district. And when I say it was a different part of Queens, it was a different part of Queens. It was like miles and miles and miles away, different culture, more conservative. Elizabeth probably was from there. Some say that district was drawn for her. It is a conservative area. And Kristen Gonzalez, who had grown up in that district, but from what we understand, had not lived there for a while either, was running in that district against Crowley. And she was recruited by an operative to run. And then she went through the DSA process very early, which was questionable. Like, I sit on the board of an organization. We didn't go through our endorsement process until after redistricting because we knew these issues. And there was debate about supporting her at that time. So I supported her against Crowley because it was like a sexy thing, like run against Crowley again. Meanwhile, a new district's created. Neither of them resided in the district and decided they're going to run in this new district that I lived in. And I said immediately, we'd love for DSA to have a new process for new voters who live here in this district. And they were like, well, there's this one part of the district that overlapped with the other one, which is true. But neither of them lived in that area. So that's just the regular dynamic. Now, what happened with Sam Seder's show is unfortunate, and I haven't spoken about it, but what I will say is that before I decided to announce, I shared the news with both Emma and Sam, and I think Sam is much more aware of the scenario than maybe Emma is. And I invited them on a surrogates call where all of our surrogates joined before I announced. Emma did not join. And then the next day, she announced she felt like she was bamboozled because she didn't know that AOC had endorsed Kristen in the previous district. I provided a whole rundown of events. We connected them with people. She refused to talk to me. And then suddenly, and Emma's never been a DSA member, by the way. And suddenly she teamed up with the Left Reckoning guys who were just like, we support DSA. Simultaneously, there's been some issues within DSA in terms of like organizations taking it over and consultants taking it over and pushing an agenda. Now, listen, I'm a leftist. I ended up supporting Kristen, but I do not feel she's representative of the democratic socialism I learned about.
Right.
I don't believe in rezonings. I don't believe in co-development. I don't I believe in community support. I believe in democracy. And they went on a really aggressive smear campaign against me and supporters of mine and people who live there locally. And then they made things up about what I said. And, I came together and I talked to her and I asked her first to support some issues. So she did my endorsement and we spent money. And the reason why I'm being a little bit more vocal now is because a couple of days ago, the guy who recruited her to run went after me and said I didn't spend any money on helping her win. First off, I didn't have to. I didn't even have to endorse her. She, it was a left district, but also we did spend money, and I think it's really in bad taste to throw that at somebody. So I've had my conversations with Kristen. It's great, and I wish her luck, and I hope she's the best senator she can be. But I urge DSA, something that an organization I've been a member of for many, many years. Unlike my opponents, all of them, to change their process, be more open and transparent. And if a district changes, which they did in other parts of the city, maybe have a new process so that the residents of that district have a say, not outsiders, because that's what was happening. Outsiders were. So it got really toxic, but it gets noisy and it was hurtful because, they erased a lot of the work I've done in the community. They made things up and said I moved there from Tucson, Arizona 2 years ago. I was born in Tucson. I went to college in Tucson, but I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I've lived in New York for over 10 years. And prior to living in New York, I didn't live in Tucson. I was in college in Tucson. So it's just, they used a lot of, they lied about a lot of things. And, that's not representative left. I didn't lie about her. Don't lie about me.
So when you got to because I was looking at, it's nothing to do with you, but looking at Alaska and kind of reveling in the Democratic Party member winning because there was 2 Republicans running and split the vote beautifully. One of them being Sarah Palin with 27% of the vote, which I think is more than hilarious.
Well, they had a ranked choice system, so it's a little
different. I don't know the time frame. Like I said, from thousands of miles away, you don't get the nuance. But did you, as soon as you found out that she was running with you, the DSA candidate, is that when you dropped out immediately, or did you run against her for a while?
No, because there were people. Well, there was other stuff happening too. We were having conversations with people that were going to do dual endorsements of us, who felt that the process was not great. There was no concept of splitting the vote. This is a district that Bernie won by 80%. So they used that as a smear attack against me. I had stronger name ID. We had internal polling. We raised $60,000 in a little over a month, whereas it took her 9 months to raise 150. And then they started raising money off of this debate, off of this controversy with me. And that's what really, it just felt icky. And I don't like doing things that feel icky and are not reflective of the community. I don't think that the campaign, they kept me I'm the dirty. I had people following me. I have a police report against somebody right now. It was not cool.
Wow.
It was not cool. I'm not saying that they were direct. Well, I'm not saying her campaign was directly responsible for some of this stuff, but there were people in DSA who were following me around. One person was outside of my apartment door, which is in a building, and we have him on camera. We were followed to events. Some guy stormed an event and we had to call the police on him. And he was telling people to come after me. A guy put a video putting a vex on me and one of my staffers. It was insane.
A vex.
But this is politics today. So I'm not saying this because I'm saying this because we have to be careful about these attacks against people, because somebody can see it and take it the wrong way. And this is what I was trying to say to her and her campaign was we all live here together, right? I've lived here for longer than all 3 of my representatives combined. And I'm not one of the longest residents of the district. That's a concern, right? A lot of people locally are concerned that people are importing candidates knowing it's a left district and playing on that low turnout. Right. And I think we need to have a real conversation about, is this who we really are or not? So there was no such thing as splitting the vote. I got out of the race. I put whatever resources I could into moving my voters over to her. And, I sucked it up, and I believe in a Democratic Senate because I was the only person who fought for a Democratic Senate. I fought against the IDC to have a Democratic Senate. Why would I let go of my legacy for spite? And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Is that last couple of questions? I'm sorry, we've been longer than we were, but these are my last couple of questions. The length of time we spend on this, Nomiki, will depend on how long your answers are, not how short my questions are.
Okay.
Is that something you want to do? Do you want to get into politics still? Is that is that a bucket list? Do you want to be elected to do something in somewhere?
I think that, listen, there's a lot of evolving that in terms of good government, that the left has to kind of move through right now, because we can't fall victim to things that have happened in the past where we let institutions be taken over by special interests, whether we're conscious of it or not, to push their own interests. And the game is it seems shiny on the outside, but on the inside, it's if you're not lockstep with the party bosses on any side, you don't really survive very well. So I'm very independent. I will continue doing what I'm doing, supporting candidates I love, going around the country raising money for candidates I love, locally, statewide, in my community. I'm fighting against some rezonings that are happening that are affecting the affordability of the fastest growing city in America. I'm going to go to Albany and continue to lobby. I have my own pathways to pushing for change in the meantime, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to check out and, go do knitting on the beach or something.
Yeah. And also sometimes it's better to be outside the tent throwing stones in than inside the tent having it out. Hey, and have you been back on the Majority Report since? Or have you got plans to go back on?
Way before that. This had nothing to do with the campaign. People know this, that I ended my show because it was too exhausting, frankly. So I love Sam. I support his work. I've always supported his work. I was a good friend of Michael Brooks, and I miss him deeply. I think the show is going in a direction, and I'm happy to have conversations with Sam, one-on-one in a deeper way. But I think that there's other avenues right now.